Welcome back to World of Immersion. Today we are going to be ranking every single maze at Knott Scary Farm in 2022. Now this year's event is really incredible. They have 9 mazes, which is one more than they had last year. However, out of those 9 mazes, 2 of them are brand new for this year. And I have to say they have a fantastic lineup of mazes this year. Overall, the event is super fun and I highly encourage you to go check it out. Before we start today's video though, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss it when we have brand new videos from all of your favorite theme parks in Southern California. With that being said though, let's get right into the video. Alright, and starting off our list, in last place, in number 9th place, we have Dark Entities. Now honestly, this maze is one of the few mazes that I did not actually enjoy very much when I was going through it. I have felt this ways usually in years past with this maze because I feel like there's just not enough actors in there. The set design is really cool and some of the animatronics are cool, but there are barely any actors throughout the entire maze, so it's really not that scary. Like I said though, the set design is great, and it's still a fun maze to go through, however it just really does not hit as well as some of the other mazes. I think there may be 4 scare actors in the entire maze when I went through it. However, the one perk is that this maze never gets a line, but that's usually for a good reason. So that's why it comes in last in number 9th place. Coming in at number 8 though, we have Origins: The Curse of CALICO. Now I love this maze, however it's a similar story to Dark Entities, and that is that they have barely any actors in there, and the scares are not that good. Now don't get me wrong, this set design on this maze is incredible. There are some fantastic sets, and it is a really long maze. However, I feel like there's just not enough actors in there. And the actors that are in there are not really super scary. They just kind of add more to the show of the maze. And I feel like that's kind of the whole point of Origins, and that is that it's supposed to be a really cool maze to walk through with great sets and tells a story very well, but it's not super scary. However, don't get me wrong, it is still a really fun maze, and definitely one you should check out. But next, coming in at number 7, we have a maze that's been here for a little while, and it's actually the last year for this maze, and that is Dark Ride. Now I do definitely enjoy this maze every time I walk through it. I think these last few years I've been enjoying it less just because of how long it's been around for. However, it is still a good maze. Some of the sets are a little outdated, but I think that the giant set at the end with all of the actors in it is really fun, and there are definitely some great scares in this maze. Overall, I think it's a really unique and interesting story with an abandoned dark ride taken over by a bunch of clowns, and it's definitely a really fun and scary maze. However, just because of how outdated it is, that's why it comes in so low on the list. But coming in at number 6, we have Waxworks. Now this maze was actually towards the top of my list last year, however recently I feel like there are a lot less actors in there than there used to be, and it's a lot less scary. Now don't get me wrong, it's still a fantastic maze, has some cool sets, and there's some cool animatronics at the end as well. And there's definitely some great scares, however I feel like there were just a bunch of scares missing that were there last year, which really kind of was a letdown for me. However, I do definitely still love this maze, and I definitely would recommend it to anybody that's visiting the event this year. Now coming in at number 5, we have the Depths. Now I love this maze so much. I think it is a very unique maze with some very unique scares as well. There's one scene in which it looks like you're wading through water with characters jumping up underneath to attack you, and it is such an incredible scene. Plus this maze has a pirate ship that you walk inside that actually moves back and forth inside of a maze. How crazy is that? I think the maze has some very unique scares, and the shark that comes out and gets you at the end is terrifying always. I really love this maze, and I hope it sticks around for a few more years because it's seriously an incredible maze that you must check out every time you visit Scary Farm this year. Alright, and coming in at number 4 is one of the brand new mazes for this year, and that is BLOODLINE 1842. Now this maze is one of the mazes where they give you a laser tag gun and you actually shoot at the scare actors, and you can rack up points throughout the entire maze. I had a blast doing this maze. While I don't think it is a super scary maze, it is definitely a really fun one, and it's very unique to Scary Farm. Now yes, they've had this type of maze in years past, however I think this one is definitely a lot better than the last one. This maze is incredibly long, it feels like it just goes on forever, and they have multiple points in which they stop you in a room and add more to the storyline with characters talking to you and teaching you how to do stuff along the way, leading to a grand finale fight against the big boss. And I think this maze is really good. There are some great unique scares coming from above, below, to the side, and there are just some really fun parts of this maze. I think it's a very unique maze that definitely deserves a walkthrough every time you visit Scary Farm this year, and that's why it comes in at number 4 on the list. Alright, and we've made it to our top 3, and now these top 3 are all really, really good and terrifying mazes. But coming in at number 3, we have Pumpkin Eater. This is one of the scariest mazes I've ever walked through, especially because when I was there, they were sitting in such small groups so that I was only with 2 or 3 other people walking through the maze, and it was terrifying. This is one of the darkest mazes I've ever walked through, with me even having to feel my way to try to get through some of the scenes because of how dark it was. There are some great scares in which it is pitch black, and then all of a sudden a character will jump out at you, and there are just some really, really incredible sets in this maze. It seriously is one of the most terrifying mazes I've ever walked through, and while the storyline is a little bit hard to follow, and sometimes the theming is not as good, it is just such a scary maze that it had to be this high on the list. While it is a little bit shorter compared to some of the other mazes, there are just some fantastic scares, and the overall creepiness of the maze that makes up for it. One unique scare that I will mention is the scene where it's pitch black in the forest and all of a sudden a giant pumpkin head jumps out at you. And I'm talking a massive pumpkin head that must be at least 6 feet across that jumps out right in front of you and makes a loud sound. It is terrifying. The scares in this maze are so good, and they are loud, and it's so dark, and it just really is one of the most immersive mazes of the event this year. So that's why it comes in at number 3. And coming in at number 2 is actually the maze that was my number 1 maze from last year, and that is Mesmer, Sideshow of the Mind. This maze is so incredible. It has some fantastic sets. It is so immersive. Seriously, this maze tells an incredible story and just has some of the craziest and trippy sets ever. Plus, this maze is truly really terrifying with some fantastic jump scares and incredible sets that really immerse you into this creepy world of Mesmer. There are some fantastic, unique scares as well, and just some of the rooms are really, really cool, and they really kind of trip you out. There's one room where the entire room is rocking back and forth, and then there's another room where you're walking on a tightrope across a giant drop that looks terrifying. There's a room that looks like you're in space, as well as a room with a ton of mirrors. And then towards the end, there's a massive animatronic that is at least 15 feet tall that is towering over you, and it is terrifying. This maze has some incredible theming and is definitely one of the best mazes I have ever done at any Halloween event ever. There's a reason why it was my number 1 maze last year. However, this year there is still one maze that even tops Mesmer. And coming in at number 1 is my new favorite maze of Knott's Scary Farm, and that is Grimoire. This maze is so incredible. It is by far the longest maze I've ever done at any Halloween event ever. This maze just feels like it goes on forever. It is so incredible. It starts off with a great pre-show, and there are so many times where you don't know where you're going next, and then all of a sudden one of the actors opens a door out of nowhere, and you go through, for example, like a refrigerator into the next room. It is so cool. It has some great scares, and I love how in this maze they do something similar to Horror Nights where they time a lot of their scares with sounds and lights. It really adds to the immersion of the maze, and the scares can be so much better this way. It has some fantastic sets and really goes on for such a long time. It goes through so many different types of sets, such as World War scenes, as well as some really cool forest scenes with scare actors in them, and a cabin. It's so cool. There are some great scenes, and it tells such a good story and such an interesting story that it's easy to follow while still being not super boring. Overall, this maze is incredible. I really do appreciate how much work Knott's Scary Farm put into this maze. I think the actors in it are incredible, and not to mention there are a ton of actors in this maze. There are so many of them around every corner. And like I said, it just feels like it goes on forever, with the finale scene being super cool, seeing the giant spinning tree of books. It is so, so much fun. This maze is so incredible, and I would highly recommend waiting for this maze, even if it's posted at a long wait, because it is by far the best maze at Scary Farm, and it is worth it. However, that's going to do it for my ranking of every single maze at Knott's Scary Farm in 2022. But I know that my ranking will definitely differ from everybody else's, so I want you to comment down below how you would rank every maze at Knott's Scary Farm in 2022. This event is incredible, and I would highly recommend checking it out this year. Also, the crowds have been relatively low, so it was super easy to get done with all the mazes in one night. But be sure to check out the event if you can. Thank you so much for watching World of Immersion today, but before you go, be sure to check out our vlog from our first night of Knott's Scary Farm in 2022 this year. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you in the next video.